Hey y'all, I'm Harrison, and today we're continuing our discussion about power. Here's the takeaway. Power is an image. Whenever we talk about power, many of us tend to get an icky taste in our mouth. Whether or not we notice it, most of us would probably agree with Lord Acton's quote that power tends to corrupt and absolute power corrupts absolutely. If asked, we could come up with hundreds of examples of power being misused or abused. But last week, Eric established for us that since power is the capacity for meaningful action, it's something that we all have. So that means that thinking about the use of power isn't just for leaders, it's important for everyone. So if we're going to steward power well as individuals or as a society, we need a conception of power that goes beyond examples of its misuse. In other words, we need a positive vision of power. Today, I want to submit to you that the life of Jesus Christ is that vision. It is the positive vision of power. And to see that, I want us to consider three principles drawn from his life that I think can help us understand how to exercise positive power: submission, service, and sanctification. First, Jesus submitted to the authority of the Father. In John 6:38, he says, "I've come down from heaven not to do my will, but the will of him who sent me." Though Jesus was fully God, and he was equal in all ways to the Father, when he took on a human nature in the incarnation, he submitted himself to the redemptive will of the Father. So if this is true for the Son of God, how much more should it be true for us, for you and me? So whenever we exercise power, it should always be in submission to God. So what exactly does that look like? Well, if you watched last week, you'll remember that Eric established for us that every person has power by virtue of their being made in the image of God. Well, in Scripture, image bearing is often likened to being an emissary or a governor appointed by a king. They're someone who has great power because they've been given it by the king, but they have to exercise that power in accordance with the will of the king. So what is God's will? Well, above all else, it's that we love God with all that's within us and that we love our neighbor as ourselves. Now this brings us to our second principle. Though Jesus was all-powerful, he used his power to serve others. In Matthew 20, the mother of two of Jesus' disciples came to him and asked that he would make her sons great, powerful people. Jesus replied that the Roman rulers used their authority for their own good, to serve themselves. But he said, in his kingdom, whoever would be great among you must be as a servant, and whoever would be first among you must be as a slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. The supreme example of Jesus' power and the supreme example of his service is the cross and the resurrection, because it's there that he defeated Satan and broke the power of sin all for us. Our power then should be exercised in the service of others and not ourselves. Finally, Jesus shows us that the way we use our power is to be part of our sanctification. And that just means us growing in holiness, us imaging God more. You see, since our power is rooted in our being an image bearer, it means that our power should bear God's image. Our power should reflect him and his holiness. In John 14, Philip, one of Jesus' disciples, said, "Lord, show us the Father." And Jesus replied, "Whoever has seen me has seen the Father." You see, all that Jesus did on earth was an act of God's self-revelation. So similarly, all that we do, including the way we use our power, is to point back to the character of God. So what does this look like? Well, a great place to start is the fruit of the Spirit. You probably know them: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The appearance of these attributes in our life is evident that God is at work within us. So, power that's exercised with patience or with kindness or with self-control is both a reflection and an extension of God's own power at work in and through us. Power that is submitted to the will of God the Father. Power that is used in service of others. And power that is an act of sanctification or a reflection of God's character. That is power that we should all strive for. That is the positive vision of power that is unparalleled on earth. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you'll join us next week. And until then, here are a couple of questions to help you process everything that we've talked about.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound, saved a wretch